Hello, Frida.
Hello, I think we can begin.
All right, let's get
Linda?
started. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good evening. Sorry for the noises in the background. I'm not in a very quiet place. I would like to welcome everybody for our second cohort and our second cohort third lesson, in which we'll be having an open panel in which everybody can ask questions or discuss about any topic related to environmental health that they feel needs attention. So the floor is open to everybody, and then we shall be having then following that we shall be having comments by Dr. Macharia as well, our CEO, and then after we shall be having summit announcements by Augustine, and then we shall be concluding with our attendance form in which you should all be signing for allocation of tokens. So I don't know if we should be waiting for more people to join. So we can just open the panel to any topic of interest that needs attention. Um, we have been unpacking quadratic funding. So if anybody wishes to know more about quadratic funding, please feel free to also voice out questions about it as well. So the floor is open to anyone with questions.
Yes. Thank you, Baker. And today we are doing this open conversation as we are getting deeper and deeper into quadratic funding because we want to make sure that everyone is tracking. So if you have questions about that, you feel like somewhere you need clarification, some matters that you need clarification, this is a time to ask in an open conversation, which is called a debrief. It's a debrief session for environmental health. And you know why we talk about environmental health in Actuate itself? We talk about environmental health because the environment where we live is one of the primary determinants of health. And actually, it is so important. The environment is so important. Is just next to the economic health. But environment produces health all by itself. Environment is spontaneous. It doesn't do anything. There's nothing, environment does nothing wrong to produce health difficulty among human beings. But humans, being hyperactive, they destroy environment on a constant. Oh, let me just turn off this machine making noise. Humans destroy the environment on a consistent basis. So we have this environmental health too, so that we can understand how humans should interact with the environment itself without destroying it. So to keep the environment healthy, because the healthy environment will help human beings to stay healthy. Okay, give me 1 second. Stop making noise in this machine. So that's the question of all that. That the environment itself, for human beings to be healthy, the environment has to be healthy. And you see, we have learned in this series that the health can be seen from three realms. There's environment above ground. Above ground, this means the air that we breathe, and heavens, which has got the clouds and the rain. And then there's the environment on the surface of the ground, where we have the plants and animals roam about the surface. And then the environment beneath ground, underground environments, where rodents live, or where minerals, you say the minerals and waters. So the environment underneath the ground, it's full of minerals, full of life. So those three environments, if they're not well managed, human beings interfere with all three, destroy not only the environment above the ground with pollution, meeting out there toxic gases, carbon dioxide, and other gases. They also destroy the environment on the ground, surface environment. First of all, cutting down all the trees that leaves the environment exposed to continuous sunlight. And even the rivers themselves, like we could say water reservoirs or water catchment areas, get destroyed by just human action. And so the streaming water fails to go where it's supposed to go. Sometimes it gets stagnated, producing breeding grounds for mosquitoes and other parasites. But then we have the underground environment, which has got all those the water that's underground, which can get polluted by the chemicals that we put on the soil. But on the surface environment is where you have the built environment. And the built environment has got 5 distinct functions. Let's say 4. I think it's 4, maybe 5. 4 functions. That's the environment where people play, where people live, where people work, and where people learn. So play is very important, particularly playgrounds for humans, adults, and children. Children want playgrounds a lot. Now, in the built environment, say like in cities like Nairobi, in estates, you find a lot of people putting up living estates and supposed to be living where people are supposed to live, but there's nowhere for people to play. Even you go downtown Nairobi, I think there was an attempt to create Jiva G gardens, but there's always an attempt to destroy that beautiful garden in the middle of town. So these are supposed to be places that people play, or people can go to relax there, to recreate. Recreate is creating again. So environment is supposed to recreate yourself. But then instead of maintaining such environments, when you think about built environments, it's as if we want to build and remove all the places where people can play. Then these buildings that we put up are for places where people can learn, like schools, like learning centers. But see, now learning is changing because people can learn online. And now how can these technologies of learning adapt so that we can create more play spaces that allow people, to learn without having to construct new building centers for learning. So they can learn from wherever they are, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Okay, so that's the second use of an environment. The third use is where people work. So the work environments, you have seen that people have to go to offices and this past economy is that is the past economy, which is changing dramatically. Like the office buildings, even in another 10 years, many of the office buildings will be empty, or maybe they'll have to be converted into apartment buildings for people to sleep. So there's gonna be a lot of high-rise apartments in the city, because people will prefer to be working from home. But it is as we were taught by COVID. But then of course you can see that now we are able to work from anywhere in the world because of the internet. So that is where people work, and you can see the work environment is changing dramatically. So what's the question you're asking is, what is your role in all that? Where are you gonna be? And so these adaptations on the environment, if you don't adapt to the changing environment, you'll be extincted. Remember Charles Darwin talking about survival of the fittest. The fitness to survive in an environment is not the fitness in the muscles, is to adapt to the new changing environment. So that's the work environment. So school, the learning environment, and the work environments are going to change. And that brings me to the final environment, which is called where people live. You can see when the work environment and the learning environments are changing, also the living environments are going to change. So you need to be up to speed with all that. How is the environment for living going to change? Where would be the most suitable place to live? Where you can access to energy, because energy is so important. So important, electricity, which is another environmental issue, where energy is accessible and without use up persistent blackouts so that you can be online as you require to learn and work, and then where you have access to, you also have access to people. So living environment is going to change dramatically over the next 10 years. So for you, also in this series, you want to be aware of those things. What are the changes for the living environment? Because the living environment where people live is going to be determined by the nature of workplaces or workspaces, because workspaces are changing, they're all going online, and the nature of learning spaces, they're also going online like we're doing right now. That leaves the recreational environment where people play, and that's going to open up a lot of room. But for all those things, there are two critical things that are going to make those things happen very, very well. One thing is energy, as I said, but this energy itself, we have abundance of energy in Africa, in Kenya, for example. There's not a single day that goes by without sunlight. You can have cloudy day, but the sunlight is going to be there. That sunlight is sufficient to generate sufficient energy for you to do all the work needs that you have, or it's sufficient for you to give you all the learning needs that you have. But the problem is between the sun out there in the skies and energy to help you work is something called money. So there's a difference, the distance between the sunshine or the sunlight and creating that environment that you want is money. And that's what you're talking about, funding, quadratic funding. Now, as you all know, we created Actuate token to solve this problem because traditional funding methods have not worked to safeguard the environment. In fact, in the traditional finance system, the more we try to apply traditional finance system, the more we destroy the environment. It is a paradox. In the traditional Tradify, you look at it, traditional finance, the more we try, the more we implement traditional finance methods to safeguard the environment, the more we destroy the environment. Why is that? I think that's a big question for discussion. Why does Tradify destroy the environment? Why does traditional finance destroy the environment? And maybe you already know the answer to that question, because traditional finance is determined by just a few people, centralized finance. And those few people make decisions about the environment to safeguard their own self-interest. This is the interest of the few against the interest of the many. So the interest of the few, because they know they have taken so much money from others, and there are few, just a few of them, then they have to try and protect themselves from people coming to take their wealth back. So they create conditions for the haves and have-nots. The haves and have-nots, and then it creates a situation where they're enemies of peace, and people, they either create wars to fight other people to protect what they have already stolen from them, destroying the environment in the process, or they create some serious policies that actually make it difficult for the others from whom they're stealing to progress. Okay, so the decentralized finance makes all that go away. There's no central person, so people are able now to participate. And you see why decentralized finance is very powerful in this regard, particularly in what you're talking about, quadratic funding. For those who have been following quadratic funding over the past few weeks, quadratic funding is a mechanism that enables yourself as an individual, wherever you are, yourself, to participate in financing environmental projects. So it's totally decentralized, that we don't have to wait for the big shot out there to make decisions about what environmental projects we are going to do, or we don't have to wait for instruction from the European Union. No, this is where you take responsibility for financing the environment. That is made possible by something like Actuate token. Before tokens like Actuate came around, that was totally impossible. You had to write articles, you had to write what's called grant applications to big organizations who are known as grant makers. These grant makers is just maybe 2 or 3 guys. They sit down in a room and then they decide, oh, this is good, let's give them money. So they create projects they call clean cities, clean energy, but that really is highly biased process, which means that they are going on to support environment projects that are going to put money in their pockets. So it's a highly rigged system, and that is how we have managed to create an extremely destroyed environment, which is spewing carbon dioxide in the air, destroying the environment that's above ground, putting a lot of chemicals on the ground, destroying the very soil that you hope to support us, and to destroy agriculture, even destroy the living environment, destroy the recreational environment, and destroy even the third environment I'm going to talk to you about, which is the non-built environment. The non-built environment, according to the third, because there's a second environment, which is in between the built environment, which we said has got 4 things, where people play, learn, work, and live. But then you have a second environment, which is between that built environment and the non-built environment. And that is the place that contains domestic animals. Domestic animals live in some sort of environment which is maybe built, maybe not built. Because, say in African context, we don't really build such big structures for our cows, like say that they would do in Switzerland. In Switzerland, they have a 5-story cow shed. So cows have to climb stairs. But well, they don't climb stairs. Cows stay in their stairs. They're 5th level. And if they are going to come out there, they have to take the elevator down. Okay. Or a lift. So in Kenya, we don't have that because we don't need to have, storage houses for cows. And we don't have zero grazing. Our animals are not zero. They are multiplicity grazing. So they are grazing all over the place. And so you could say that place where the animals live is non-built, but it's not wildlife. That's domestic life. Because you have cattle. And you see what happens when cows go out like that, even sheep and goats and such domestic animals, even chicken, which are eating out from outside, they can go and collect diseases, which they can bring home. That's why that environment is very important. These bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, all kinds of things. And for those people who have lived with livestock, they know a lot about animal parasites, which come from the environment. And then, of course, we have the wildlife environment out there, which helps us to balance the nature, where we have wild animals, like the big 5 we have in Kenya. We have rhinos, elephants, zebras, gazelles, lions, lionesses, and leopards, and all those, even the antelopes, and there's lots and lots of animals. Some of them are in water animals like crocodile. And those ones help to balance you could say the great circle of living, because they are able to just stay in by themselves unless human beings get in there and start destroying their living quarters. But this is what happens when humans enter such places. They manage to get something else besides killing the animals. We get those bacteria and viruses and parasites that are living happily in the animals. Because every animal, every creature is formed with bacteria and parasites and viruses. So if you get a bacteria or a virus that is that's living in a monkey, then you as a human being, you get that bacteria. That bacteria is going to kill you, or that virus is going to kill you. That's how people get Ebola in such hemorrhagic fevers that you find in East Africa. East African people around Abadeas, also in the coastal province, and well, somewhere in the Ruwenzori Mountains. because people go to interact with wildlife and they get the viruses coming out from the wildlife into the human kingdom. And so this is why this is important. But see, all those things can go away if human beings are not going to mess around with what the environment itself, or if you learn. But the biggest deal, as I told you, is energy. People either go there to look for food, and the food itself is going to give them energy to work or to make a living. Whatever it is, energy is the final solution. But you cannot get energy, particular energy coming from the sunlight, if we don't have money. And so this is a big opportunity for us right now, because I said that energy funding itself has become decentralized in what we call quadratic funding. And quadratic funding is going to enable everybody in the world to participate in contributing some money, a little money. Everyone will contribute some money from their pocket to finance particular energy to capture that energy from the sunlight, which is continuous, to generate enough energy to supply for safeguarding the environment. So that's what I would like to have in the composition. I think the question is, because we are in quadratic funding, we can have a discussion question. What I think, because some people are already familiar with fundraising, they do Harambes, they do Harambe is one of them. Then there are people in chamas, and there are people in table banking. I think that here in this conversation, we would like to understand, bring home how we can bring the spirit of chamas or Harambe, or even the actual regular contributions onto the blockchain with quadratic funding. So let's ask a question for the champion. Yeah, and you don't have to have the right answer. Let's open to discussion. What do you think about these things? How can we use the tokens? Because the tokens, first of all, the tokens, what they do is that they help you to represent your contribution becomes represented in the blockchain. Yeah. So because we've been discussing this for several weeks, let us now have an open conversation to see the level of understanding. Mhm. So, Frida, what do you think? How can we use this token economy to do? Let's first of all start with chamas, or maybe something like table banking. What do you think about that, Frida? Frida is silent. Frida, are you muted?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Oh yeah, we didn't hear you. Now you have to repeat what you say.
Using the question was using tokens for table banking. Okay, I don't know. Maybe Becca could elaborate.
Who's doing?
Give a suggestion.
Who's involved in chamas, and tell us how chamas operate? Like table people, they do table banking chamas, or women's group. Maybe you can see people on meeting, then you can call them to tell us what they think about. But I think everybody is involved in a Harambe contribution somewhere every week, as they imagine. Mm-hmm. Okay, Frida, who is online? Who else is online?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was saying, yeah. For chamas, how table banking works is that people contribute, some money. Let's say even weekly or monthly, or maybe building. For a project, say like buying household items or things like that. So I don't know. We have Cheryl. Yeah.
Yeah, Sid, you have Cheryl?
Yeah, I can see Cheryl is online.
Yeah, so how does it work? This you see people do weekly contributions. So how do they do it?
Like let's say we are a group of say like 5 friends. So every let's say end of the week, a day like Sunday, we all agree that every Sunday we contribute say like 1,000 Kenya shillings. Everybody contributes to 1,000 Kenya shillings to one person, and then the next week is another person who is supposed to receive that money for contribution. So it goes like that until it reaches to the say like the fifth person, and then it begins again. Yeah.
And what name do you give that process?
Uh, we call it for merry-go-round.
Oh, that's the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Okay. So you put down 1,000 shillings. People put 1,000 shillings every week. So there has to be 1,000 shillings contributed every week, forever and ever.
Yeah.
But this 1,000 shillings being contributed every week, does there have to be a project, a specific project, or somebody can use the money to do whatever?
There are different chamas for the different yeah. It does not have to be specific. It's just based on the let's say the agreement between between those chama members. You can agree maybe for the contributions go to a certain project, or they can just be contributing money for no sole purpose. Yeah, just contributions. You can use that money for anything, but there are other chamas who use they want to maybe build a certain project, so they contribute with the purpose of developing something or buying things. Yeah.
Okay. So in this, we know that if somebody receives money, can somebody receive that money and disappear? And then say like get 5,000 shillings. If there are 5 people, you're going to have 5,000 shillings the first round. So if the first lady received that money and disappears, how would that affect the chama?
Yeah, there's instances where people disappear. That's why most people maybe do those groups with people they know. Yeah, because
Yeah.
there are instances where we have contributed to this person, but then they decide that they don't want to contribute to for other people, so they just disappear with the money. Yeah.
But that person who had disappeared with the money, he takes 5,000, but instead of just waiting and contributing just 1,000, it's not going to be too much. But even if this person is seeing that I have to contribute 1,000 every week, you might see that that 5,000 will be finished by the end of the week. Or they do this merry-go-round. Some of those are weekly, and then they also have monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Interesting. So anybody else? Cheryl, have you experienced or have you observed this merry-go-round business? Who else has experienced this? Because we need to
Personally, I've never been into one. Yeah. But yeah, it's the way Frida's explained.
So what makes people stay in it instead of taking the money and running off and then collapsing the entire system?
Most of the times when people get into it, it's usually among people who know each other. They know where you live, they know your family members, or they even worship in the same church. So somehow it's hard to run away. It's still possible to run away with the money, but not so common.
It's just the fear of God that puts them together so that God will punish him. I think so. What do you think? It's just afraid of something. Or maybe they have the social contracts. or maybe something called honor. They do because they honor each other's agreement. Yeah, like if there is man, it's called a gentleman's agreement. If the women, it's a ladies' agreement. But it's never written somewhere that this agreement, like to establish this chama, is not composed with the constitution. With bylaws saying that these are the laws we are going to be following. Or are there such bylaws? And then such chamas usually sometimes they can grow big enough and even open a bank account with Equity Bank.
Yeah, Susan, I think maybe Susan can elaborate.
Susan. Hi, Susan.
Yes. Hi, Doc. Actually, I was following on YouTube. Then I decided to join so that I can contribute. So about chamas, there are different types, as Frida has said. There are the merry-go-round ones, and there is also the ones that are involved. Like, for example, you get into that chama because you're having a project, and you contribute to that project. And most of the time, when you how it is done usually in the villages is you contribute the money, and then the money. So, for example, if we start today and we are 10 people, we are contributing like 1,000 per month. That is like 10,000, right? So this 10,000 goes to the first person, and usually how it is decided, it's like just randomly you take one person, and then you give that person. The next month the 10,000 goes to the next person. That way. There are other chamas that contribute, like you contribute the 10,000, and then you open a bank account, and this money, after contributing, then you invest in a certain project, which I think it's the way it's supposed to be, because the merry-go-round ones, they beat the whole point. I think the whole point of merry-go-rounds are the social aspect, bit of because you're coming together as people, but it doesn't really help, does it? I don't know. I don't think it does help, but yeah. So basically, that's how they run the chamas.
Yeah.
About there's also table banking. I don't know whether it's the same thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's how chamas work. And I think in our case, how it should run is if people are contributing the money for a certain project, maybe for example, they're contributing money for the project now, or for the quadratic funding, yes. So it's towards a project. If they really, because the idea of chama, the reason why people get to them is because they help you come up. Because when you have like 1,000 bob, it's hard to accumulate that money in a span of 10 months. Yes, because if you are 10 people, it means that it will go for 10 months before you get your 10,000 again. So when you have a large amount of money at a time, and you can do something with it. Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, that's how they work.
So there are those ones. There are those rounds, merry-go-rounds, which are kind of self-help. It's called self-help because when you accumulate some money, you're given all that money at once to help yourself to meet,
yes,
to bridge some need. That's why they're called self-help groups.
Mm-hmm.
But then the second category is where you are investing on a project, like saying buying a whole bunch of chicken. Yeah. So I've seen a group like that in our village there in Laikipia, where women get together and they create a scheme for buying chicken, young chicks. So, for example, women contribute, and then the one woman who receives, he goes to and buys a whole bunch of little chicks. Those chicks has to be you have to look after them for what, 6 months before they can start laying eggs, or even before you can sell them. So it still requires some more funding after getting the chicks themselves. Or there's some people now are doing those to participate in 1 acre fund. 1 acre fund is a project that comes all the way from United States, which now is fashioned, I think, by some economists to help local people borrow money for buying farm inputs like seeds and fertilizers and manure for planting. But it doesn't even help you to take care of those crops. I think just like the chicken business, where they do not help you get money to feed your chicken, to grow them for 6 months, and maybe even after that, they don't find market for your eggs. So you can see those are incompleted, the projects that are not thought out completely. That because not just money people are lacking, they are lacking the ways to generate income from the money they get. And that's a huge problem. That's why all these things eventually they don't seem to grow the people. But some of them, unless they have thought out plan, which has got a business model all the way through, it can be effective. And so, but there's some people who are contributing large quantities of money that they can buy a whole building. Yeah, but that's really not microfinance anymore. If people can contribute and buy a building, like buy a plot, not an empty plot, buy a plot and build something on that plot. An empty plot itself will not do anything. An empty plot is just like those little chicks that they have to grow. So an empty plot, if it doesn't have building, it doesn't have a building, it may not generate revenue. But an empty plot that then has a building where you can be collecting rental income from that building. Now that makes sense. I think there's some chamas that have contributed money and people have bought houses or building. It's like that Rabia group from Moranga. You know Rabia, which owned that place from River. It's called River Road. Yeah. All that place of Kirinyaga Road, all that place is owned by Rabia people. Yeah. They just people raising money like that, and they contributed money to buy plots. They used to buy those properties from India, from Tombo. It's called Tomboya Street, the one that's next to Moy Avenue, going the way to the Eastlands, all the way down to the river. That's got a lot of buildings owned by the Rwabia group. And see, that's how to do it. Now, that can be very effective if you're contributing money to buy a full building, because the next thing is just renting out the buildings going to be generating revenue. And so I think the issue with quadratic funding then bypasses the need to have a complete project. For example, the chicken, because quadratic funding on the blockchain. Here is how it bypasses all that. It's because when you say if people are contributing, say 10K, 10,000 shillings each person contributes 10,000 shillings, or maybe let's say even much cheaper, even 1,000 shillings, they can receive Actuate token equivalent to that 1,000 shillings. And then they can have the 1,000 shillings. I mean, that's going to be pulled together into 10,000 shillings to give it to one person to go and do the chicken project. But then they also have tokens because they contributed the money for the tokens. And these tokens go into the market where they're actually being traded by other people in the world. That's called so those chicken are not just on the ground, they are represented in the marketplace. You see, that's what quadratic funding now puts this thing on steroid. You see, that the chickens themselves may take 6 months. Meanwhile, the tokens are already trading in the marketplace. See that? And so it powers table banking in an incredible way that we could never, ever have imagined. And because you can see it now seals that gap between having just little chicks, money for little chicks, And you may not even have to worry about those little chicks if you're just concerned about earning money from the tokens. But you're sure even if those little chicks are affected by what's called, natural issues, and they're not able to get to 6 months and then start laying eggs, you still have your tokens representing those chickens in the marketplace. So it becomes a bridge between the traditional table banking or merry-go-round. Now, could you imagine that if that Rhodia group was doing quadratic funding to raise that money, all that real estate that is east of Tomboya Street, going all the way down to the river, down at Kirinyaga Road there, all that is owned by the Rhodia group. Imagine it was also represented in the marketplace. It would be trading in the stock market, like it would be trading the Nairobi Stock Exchange. But now, instead of trading in the Nairobi Stock Exchange, it will be trading in decentralized finance exchanges or DeFi like Uniswap and QuickSwap or PancakeSwap, let's say. Now, that is a lot of wealth represented. Today, that wealth does not appear anywhere in the market except in the pockets books of the Ruavia people. Yeah. So, and that is why it would look as if there is no economic activity going on, even in the east of Tomboya Street, whereas there's a lot of business going on right now. But now quadratic funding now makes that free on the blockchain. So because Ruavia is already built, and so the next step in quadratic funding in financing is now using decentralized finance technology to make that finance that was done by the Rhodia group. And remember that for the Rhodia group to do that, that was very, very, very hard work. But in Rhodia is where we had people like Mwangi of Equity. That's Mwangi came out of that generation of people. And you've seen what Equity Bank has done in terms of success. But now we are talking about second generation with similar success, but now become widespread throughout the nation. That now we can reach the lowest person on the ground by just issuing tokens to them for their contribution. Because say, for example, even Equity Bank, even the way it is right now, it still cannot lift off those guys in the villages who are doing chamas for buying chicken. It cannot lift them up because it's still missing one step to go to the market in the finance market, they unrepresented. But they can have an account at Equity Bank. But then the Equity Bank is not going to represent the interest in the global finance market. So that's something that it would be good for all the people in Actuate Nation to understand that step and to see how powerful it's going to be over the next few years. When people get to understand this funding mechanism, it's going to spread out throughout the entire community because people are already aware of what they are doing. Now, this is putting microfinance, what's usually traditionally called microfinance, goes into the finance market. And you see that microfinance is a derogatory term created by people in Washington, D.C. who run the World Bank. There's nothing micro about it. That is where the real finance lies, because that is where the population is. That's where it's called the population, the masses. That's where everybody is, except a few people at the top. All right, so that's what very, very impressive, very amazing. And I believe that now we can say, how do we do it? The next question. How would we do it? Now, Susan, you gave us very good. Maybe Susan, you can tell us, how would we do it? How do you see it? Say, for example, we have a chama and people are contributing 1,000 shillings in that chama and it's being put for a project. First of all, we have to be, for example, now it's talking about environmental health. And say environmental health, we'd be talking about tree planting or maybe water harvesting, rainwater harvesting for environment, or even energy. I think energy is something that can lend itself very well to this. It's like solar panels. You see that we can create a chama that can enable people to buy solar panels. But these solar panels themselves, they don't generate money after you buy it. You have to have something that is going to bring revenue, not just to consume revenue. What kind of revenue generating activity can someone do? Say a small, say subsistent agriculture person, somebody with a small shamba. What kind of revenue generating activities can they do with a solar panel? What kind of things can make him money? Well, you can say that person can keep chicken and manage to raise chicken, incubate eggs, because you need energy to incubate eggs. And I don't know whether solar energy is sufficient. What else? I don't know about. Yeah. What question? Susan, go ahead.
Yeah. So sometimes, mostly, especially in the agriculture area, I think the most what people lack a lot is water, and I think this can be combined with the water projects. Basically, away, because if people depend on the season rains, sometimes it limits people on what they're planting or what they're farming. Yes, so I would think such, for example, if we had a way for people, and I think solar requires maybe large scale, but nowadays, because electricity is not as limited as it was sometimes back, I think what people would need is maybe a borehole and a way for them to do maybe small scale irrigation for the farming, if they have a small shamba, and people can come together and do this, and then people can also bring people in who teach or who educate people on the right ways to farm, so that they can get the right product in the market. And I've seen people do even avocados and other things like farming. I am not very savvy on agriculture, but it's something that people can do. What do you think?
Yeah, I think water is a great idea. So water relies on energy. So even say you put up a borehole, you still need a water pump. And to pump the water out of the borehole to an elevated tank, which would distribute water to the farm. Now, even if you have only 1 acre or 2 acres, you can produce lots of crops, so long as you have water. So I agree, water is a big deal. So then that means that, it means that when in this conversation, we are talking about, when we talk about environment, water is a big deal in terms of environment, how even water harvesting, rainwater harvesting, and just that alone, there's so much water in the rainy season, but just goes away, as we have all witnessed during the past 2 months. But it just goes away, draining people and killing them. So rainwater harvesting, all that water, catching it to keep it. It requires 2 things. One, it requires harvesting the water from the rooftops. Yeah. And that requires tanks. And so you need to have several tanks to harvest that rain. Suppose even if you dig a borehole, you still will need tanks to store water from the borehole. And so the tanks are necessary. Tanks nowadays are not too expensive, because there are all these plastic tanks being manufactured. And then second, you can harvest the water by building water ponds, those open spaces, like small lakes that you build in your area. But you need more. You need some piece of land that's big enough, or maybe you dig a deep hole where water can be going. But you have to be careful that human beings or babies don't just drop into that hole. Or wells. Now, either way, you shall still need a pump, water pump, so that you can distribute water. because you have to pump it into a highly elevated tank all the way to the top. And then when it's pumped to a highly elevated tank, then it can be used for irrigation. So you would need some pipes to distribute it into the place, onto your crops. Yes. And this is something that even it's now proposed is a good project. You see, a solar panel, 1 or 2 solar panels would be sufficient to run a pump like that. Mhm. So when you're talking about developing this as a business, which is going to be revenue generating for the family, then we have to compose it and become, that full scale, such that by the time you're doing quadratic funding, you have a full cost. You will know that. See, for example, the way people do these merry-go-rounds. Say you have 10 families in one location, and each one of them is going to have one of those things installed. It's going to have not one, but a whole package of that: the water pump, the water catchments, or the water harvesting system, plus the piping system for distributing the water. So that gets a budget. Supposing after doing all that work, you discover it's going to be 20, including digging the bore. This comes about $3,000, so 300,000 shillings. 300,000 shillings, you can say that is to one family to do all those things. But the family may not have the technical know-how of putting up that type of project. So, but let's say that's about 300,000 shillings. Now, you could say, I think 300,000 shillings is an estimate for buying tanks, buying a solar panel, or a pump itself, and putting up, even putting a water pan for rainwater harvesting, and putting up the tanks. About 300,000. That's like maybe $250,000 and more, $1,300,000 shillings, but that is doable. So, if you have a group of families, now the family here we're talking about is Actuate Nation. Okay, you can say how much money does each person has to contribute for that. And then if you are saying initially, supposing is you say that the family can only come up with 30,000 shillings. So we still have 270,000 shillings to find so that you can get one family going. This 270,000 shillings is what now can be raised from well-wishers. Say that the family, the actual family, I'm assuming this is now a family of us, decide we are going to contribute this. An actual family is going to contribute 30,000 shillings, and then we go looking for matching fund to fill the rest, and then the project is going to be done. See that? So quadratic funding means that those 30,000 shillings, contributors will receive what? Actual token equivalent to 30,000 shillings. And then well-wishers from outside who want to contribute to that project also receive actual tokens equivalent to 270,000 shillings. Because they have received actual tokens and they have given their 270,000 shillings, they still have their money but the money is in another form. It has transmitted to actual token. Why is it possible for that to happen? Because we have actual token we can give them for giving us the 270,000 shillings. Now you see, that is enough money for one household. Now then you can calculate the number of households we have in a community and then figure out the mathematics. But I think you could say a place to begin is one household, and then we keep on multiplying it like that, and see people see examples of how that is working. That means that you can have then a funding mechanism that takes care of the entire business cycle, not just buying small chicks, because that's what's affordable, and then leaving the person alone. Or that's not just helping somebody build tanks and then tell them, okay, now you have your tanks, it's up to you to worry about the rest. See, so that the whole business cycle is not complete. Is that when you do this quadratic funding makes it possible to consider the entire business process and then to get it funded through well wishers. And the original contribution by the initial owners is only a fraction, like say 10%. Then the rest of it is 10 squared, 10% squared, which is the rest. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that's what I think. These are the mechanics that we're supposed to, but it's good to have it in an open conversation. We'll bring it to the ground, and so that we can actually see the examples of how this is going to work on the ground, and then we implement it as soon as possible. So long as the thing is to, in order to implement as soon as possible, we would need to know what are the requirements, where the technology is going to come, and the human resource to put it on the ground. Human resource is not so complicated so long as you understand all the components, the technology that have to go in. It's similar to buying a building. If you're buying a building, you need to go and examine it and find it's the building that can do the work that you want to use it for. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just trying to assimilate what the entire concept that has been delivered today. So just to think about it, it sounds very interesting. But for me I just want to understand: is it that when you contribute to the, really a contribution, when you contribute to the contribution, you get the token in exchange? And
Yes.
then, okay. And then so someone said something about when someone runs away with the money. So how does that actually translate into the cycle of contribution?
Oh, nowadays, when people are contributing to a project, 10 shillings, and then they receive the token, then it's up to the Actuate Nation to make sure that the project is implemented, so that we are not going to, that person is not going to run away. I mean, where the project is going to be built, because you can see this an involved project has got to be a full scale from the beginning to the end. That if it's say a water project like that, for small scale irrigation, for building a water pan or water harvesting, we would have to have identified the family that's going to receive that. It has to do it. There has to be supervision. So we cannot run away because it's not up to them to run away. Yeah. But then that doesn't mean that they're not crazy people in this world to do that.
Okay, I've just coming to think about it now based on the cryptocurrency sense. Okay, if I have a token, let's say Actuate token.
Yeah.
What if I decide to just swap it to the USDT and sell it off?
Oh, okay, that's what you mean. Okay. That's a good question, because I think we may have to lock those tokens that are going to be project tokens for a while.
So you remove the swapability?
Yes, that we remove so that people don't swap them, unless it can only work if people want to swap them if we have a lot of liquidity that swapping does not matter. But that
Okay.
what would make that happen? If people who do quadratic funding, usually they lock up the tokens, sometimes for a year, or other people even for as many as 5 years, called a vesting period. That tokens come with a vesting period for even up to 5 years. Another way to do that, to overcome that problem, is to front run the problem by making available sufficient liquidity for those people who want to swap. You can buy them up, because swapping tokens also makes the token active in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So swapping is not such a bad thing. Actually, it makes the token become very, very active in the marketplace. So long as you have some place where those tokens are going. When they're swapped, you have liquidity to buy them back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know. There was some analysis about the solar farm and the solar, and you were talking about projects, and
Yes.
I don't know. I've been doing some research on some of the environmental implementations that are going on around the world. And the reduction of carbon emission is on top of every of the talk on ESG. So
Yes.
I feel, yes, I think renewable can do a lot for us. Having a solar farm, for example, can solve a lot of electricity problems. And even now, when electric cars are not fully such, it's not fully been implemented in Africa, but we know that as time goes on, electric cars will come to stay, and they will need fueling stations. They will need electricity fueling stations, and the use of the need for solar farms will also come in place. So I was just thinking around that line when we're talking about solar, and probably, yes, solar has its limitation. The weather actually, the intensity of the sun actually matters in the amount of voltage it can provide. But I think based on sustainability, it's good.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think right there's a lot of money out there in the marketplace for investment in solar. This is why I'm saying that if you were to do something like this, then liquidity of the token will not be the biggest problem, because there's liquidity in the marketplace for making that happen. And that's another thing that we would have to work out, the liquidity that people want to swap out their tokens. We figure out how to maintain liquidity for those for the market, for the token itself. And
Okay.
solar, because there's a very huge drive towards green energy, is going to be possible, so long as we meet the right people. It's going to be possible to inject liquidity and to make these things happen on the ground. See that? So, as you said, solar, and in fact, solar, the intensity of the sun really is not what determines the solar output. It's the solar lumens that even on a cloudy day, you will still be able to generate electricity, because the light, I mean the energy, or the light frequency that generates solar is not the direct sunlight. It's not the heat. It's not the heat of the sun. The heat is very low frequency. We have very high frequency, waves that actually able to penetrate those clouds and come all the way to activate the solar panel. So a solar panel don't generate energy because of the heat of the sun, but because of the lumens, high frequency light. So light itself is what matters. So long as there's light, it means that, because even on a cloudy day, even if the sky is covered with clouds, it is still a day. You still have light. It's not night. It's not dark like night. And all you need is that light. So, and in many places in Africa, particularly in East Africa, which is on the equator, you have almost every 12 hours of solar energy every single day, even the cloudless day. Yeah. So, and I think West Africa is as well. I was in Nigeria and I saw that the huge potential for solar. And
Yeah.
so I think we are on something very heavy, so long as we communicate all the things that we have to compose it to show the minimum numbers needed, or the minimum viable products, which means that creating one family let's call it a family unit for water conservation, water harvesting from the rooftops, and solar pan and the solar panels for powering the solar pumps. The pumps themselves are a separate issue. We would have to buy pumps separately, and also we need a budget for that. But even when you do all that calculation, it doesn't arise to a lot of money. This is money that if you're considering just one family with one pump, one panel, and one borehole, maybe one water harvesting system. Yeah. Thank you so much, Monsieur Paul.
Yes, yeah, and I just what I think. So for what you said so far, it seemed to me like you buying a stock, and you get a certificate for it, like a stock certificate. So that's the way I look at the quadratic funding. Contributing, and then you getting tokens to actually and then when people buy stocks, they also sell out their stocks when they feel like they need to. So I think swappability is also going to be a good thing as well. So and then I was actually listening to you, that's actually right. I think I got the misconception of the I've forgotten a lot of things I studied in school. I actually studied electrical engineering, but yes, I just remember that yes, it has to be photoelectric effect, light rays falling on metal surfaces and the electrons being emitted. So I think I've been really, this past week I've been actually in school. I've been learning a lot, and I've been keeping a lot of information, writing down. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome, Monsieur Paul. Where in Nigeria are you? Are you in Lagos?
Lagos. Yeah, I'm in Lagos.
Right. I know Lagos quite a bit. I stayed there for a while. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a busy place, but
Super busy.
a lot of things are happening.
Yes. So yeah, let's us invite as many people from Lagos to Actuate Nation.
Actuate Nation, okay.
This Actuate Nation to join us so we can do this thing in Africa, we transform Africa. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, the tokens are like stocks. When somebody is holding the stocks, you cannot tell them not to sell them. They will sell them, and that's the frequency. Only that if we are not doing good things in the business, people can sell all the stocks. Yeah. So because that's called the market. But the market is usually independent of the business itself, the business, so that the actual token can be going on in the market, but has already helped to finance the you could say the water project, yeah, or the environmental project. Okay, thank you. Any further conversations? All right.
All right. If anybody has any further questions, please feel free to ask or write it if you're not able to speak, you're in a noisy place, feel free to just write it in the chat. And as we wait for further questions, I would like to invite Augustine to give us summit announcements.
Yes.
Augustine? Hello, Augustine.
Oh, maybe he's having audio difficulties.
Yeah. Let me just check.
Yeah, I think let me talk about the summit, and this is going to be brief because I think we are already up the hour. And first of all, thank you so much, everyone, for this conversation. I think it's good to have these debrief sessions. We have open conversations. And so the summit. So Paul, now this is for you because you're in Nigeria and you're going to help us invite a lot of people from Nigeria to come to Nairobi. We have the Actuate pre-Boston Nairobi Summit happening in December. It's going to be between December 3 to December 6, 2024. That's only a few months away. And the summit is we want to explore the role of these new technologies of blockchain, decentralized finance, and artificial intelligence in health and human development. We talk about health is what we just talked about today, a lot of environmental health. And you can see environment is a broad spectrum thing. So people who have things to say about environmental health can come and say. But we want to explore how we can use decentralized finance, like the conversation we're having today about using token economics to fund environmental health. Okay, and then we're gonna talk about human development and social development, including the growth of children, women, and the growth of the economy of the nation as well. So this summit gives you, could say, 4 distinct opportunities to express yourself. One is you can come there as a podium presenter to give a presentation to the people. So, and for you to do that, you have to submit. You have to submit. You have to submit an abstract as a speaker through our website, and I think someone should share that through our YouTube, our channel here, so that people can know where to submit as a speaker. And also, if you don't want to speak to the public, but you want your message to be to come out, you can actually come in and share a poster. You can present a poster, so there's going to be poster presentation, and it's going to be a poster. That poster is going to be a poster competition even, because we want people to compete to present their projects through the posters. And in the competition itself, your poster has to have met certain criteria. And when you go to our website, on the Nairobi Summit website, that is actuate.bio, that's a www.actuate.bio, you will find the Nairobi Summit, and it's going to have information about what? About the poster itself, and of course, how to create a poster. But before you can even create a poster, submit an abstract for your poster. And so right now, people are submitting abstracts very quickly, but over the next 2 weeks, it's going to be full, and then you might find that you're too late because this kind of things is picking up. And then those are two ways of participating. A third way that you can participate in the summit is by delivering a workshop. A workshop is 3 days that you can come there and give a whole 3 days lesson. It's like you're giving a class at a school or maybe at a college. You are teaching people for not 3 days, 4 days. And so you have to be prepared to teach people for 4 days in that workshop. And we're going to find people to support that work. So for example, we're going to have a workshop on environmental health. Just like we are talking about here, because environment is very big, those 4 days, the facilitators in environmental health will cover a lot of ground in that post. So you can actually facilitate in one of those. You come as a teacher, you're teaching people. People are here to learn, environmental health 101, 102, or even 201, like second level, all the way to 701, which is the PhD of environmental health. So that by the time people come out of the meeting, they have a full knowledge, and then how this works with blockchain. So this is going to be a workshop. And then we shall have workshops on other things like cardiology, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, things like that. Already we have a few people who are signed up to teach to teach workshops. So like this morning, I was speaking to a lady who is going to facilitate the workshop on mental health because she's a psychiatrist, and she will do 4 days seminar on the workshop. And so similarly, we are looking for people, someone who will say, I will lead the environmental workshop, environmental health workshop. And so that's another opportunity for you in the summit. Now, if you have a lot of money in your pocket, so don't feel left behind, because what you can do is come in as a sponsor. Okay, sponsors, because your work is going to be advertised widely into the summit. You see, if you come as a speaker, your work gets advertised. If you show a poster, your work gets advertised. If you are coming as a facilitator of a workshop, even your work, you get known. But if you buy sponsorship, everybody will know about you for a long time. So then sponsorships also cost a lot of money. And so for $10,000, you can come in as a sponsor. But then if you do not have, if you don't have all that money, don't worry. You can know people who have that money. Those are people who are potential sponsors. And you can call them and give them the good news that they have the opportunity to showcase their products and services in an international conference happening at Kenyatta University in Kenya. See? And so if you do that and this person agrees, obviously the person has to agree, because you're going to ask them and tell them in good language that this is what is going on. If you do that, the person agrees, you will get 5% of that. So you will make money by bringing sponsors. So these are the 4 opportunities of participation for you. 1 is a speaker. 2, to present posters. 3, to run workshop, and 4, to do what? And to talk to sponsors and tell them to come in and contribute. And of course, all that information is available on our website. Yeah. So there is room for participation. Yes, go ahead.
So can I be volunteers for helpers?
Yes.
Okay.
You can bring. Can you bring volunteers to help? Yes.
Okay, I would like to volunteer to help.
Absolutely. So you need to coordinate that. So you are in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And so
I guess I have to apply for a visa. It seems
to go to Kenya.
Yeah, to go.
President Ruto said there's no visa for Kenyans, but we shall see. I think it's good to
there's
talk
no
about
more visa. Oh wow.
I don't know. Let's first of all make sure that the foreign affairs they're on the same page with President Ruto, because Ruto I think is moving. Ruto is moving too fast for everybody. So
he ought to.
Yeah. So in any case, there's let's work on this, because visa that's important. So we need to connect to the office. But I think it's good, even if Ruto is saying that there's no visas, we need to find out exactly what he's talking about. What does the Minister of Foreign Affairs say about that?
Yeah,
so
we ought not to have one, because it's Africa. We are together,
yes. Okay. Yes. So let's stay in touch. We're in the same group. I think Augustine, he can help us. Let's connect and talk about visas and international travel. Okay. All right, Paul. You're in Actuate Nation. Oh no, you're not. You're quiet now.
Okay, I'm in the group.
Yeah, and your contact is Augustine.
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara. All right. Yeah, let's coordinate. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul, for your inquiries and interest in the summit and being a volunteer. you can coordinate with the person you're familiar with, and then we can proceed from there. I
Yeah.
would like to once again open the floor for anybody else who has any questions. This is your time to ask. Any clarifications about the summit or about the things we've talked today? Feel free to also ask. And as you're asking, I'm going to send the form for today's class in the chat. If you don't know where the chat is, please feel free to also ask.
Okay. Now, thank
So
you
I've
so much.
sent the form. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you
So
so
I've
much.
sent the form. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was saying thank you so much, everybody, for listening. So I think I'm going to sign off. I'm getting so many phone calls, then I can answer some of these calls. Okay.
All right. Thank you for today and for providing your insights as usual.
Most welcome. Have a good one.
All right. Likewise. As for everybody else, I have sent the form in the chats. Fill out the form even though you don't have a wallet address. Fill out the form, and I'm giving 5 minutes. So by 9:20.